Alright, so this is my second attempt to get deeper into software engineering. We're gonna go into what's happening currently in the tech industry. What is the things that you should know to become a better software engineer? It's gonna be not about just code, it's about thinking like an engineer. uh, Coding is definitely a very important part of it, but thinking like an engineer is something that's even more crucial in today's time because majorly AI can also code right now. So the let's just use AI itself. I'm gonna go into Chat GPT. This is my second time doing it, and start a new chat, and I'm gonna say, so now I'm gonna go into some topics which are really not basic anymore. They are a bit advanced in programming. So, and I have done a bit of them. So I'm gonna go into, let's dive into MERN stack, right? Then I'm gonna show you much more cool stuff around tech. So, but first, MERN stack. So the MERN stack is JavaScript based stack, which is for the entire front end, back end, and database. And this helps you like understand it deeply, deeply like how technology works and how can you build almost any application that you want to build, right? So uh, how does the flow work in MERN stack is that you have a browser, right? And your web application is a modern sort of web application built with modern front end, and then it talks to a backend which is hosted with Node, which is built on top of Node.js and Express, and that backend talks to a database, generally MongoDB. So you can make simple apps with this or very complex app with this idea, right? So the request goes from your browser. uh, we can take an example of a notes application. You basically add a note item, and then it basically sends a request to the database, to the backend, and backend receives that request, and then it validates that the request is authentic, right, and the data is correct. Then it stores that data into the database, and then sends back that data to the user by doing some applying some transformations. Okay, so the idea is that the database is able to store data on some disk residing on some server, right? And we can get into cloud technologies also, but let's first think about the rest of the components of MERN stack, which is the next one is Node.js. So Node.js is something which has been built on the JavaScript engine, but it can uh, work on operating system APIs, and then it has some event loop mechanisms built into it. That is basically Node.js. So Node.js is synchronous, right? But you can put asynchronous logic as well, but it won't really block. Uh, I mean, JavaScript is single threaded. You call that single threaded, yes. And Node.js is also single threaded, but you can kind of spawn processes also inside Node.js using the operating system APIs. So Node.js is non-blocking. So for example, this code prints out world hello, not hello world, because set timeout is a API that uh, puts everything into the callback queue. So it's a basically event driven architecture. So the most important topic is event loop, right? And then non-blocking IO, and then streams, buffers, async programming, and promises and async await. So with these concepts, you have the entire MERN stack, right? Uh, like these are very important concepts for MERN stack to work. Then we have Express. So Express is kind of like a framework for Node.js. So it helps you to create APIs and handle middlewares. Now middleware is a very sort of uh, term that maybe people don't understand that easily, but middleware is something that, or maybe even APIs people don't understand easily, but API is something like which basically defines a contract that I am accepting this kind of request, and based on this request I'm gonna give you this kind of response. So that is an API, and the API basically does the request response handling. And then middleware is something that lives between the request response lifecycle and does some sort of functions, runs some sort of functions during that cycle, and then handles some sort of logic in between that. Then there is routing. Routing is basically you are on one page, and it can be you go to the next page, or uh, next request gets handled using routers. Okay, so now if you have to create a basic server, the code for this is that you take the express module and call it, and then musically use the get method on it to uh, uh, to support the get HTTP methods on express. Next is routing. So routing means that you have get for users, post for users, put for users, delete for users. So these are the basically verbs of HTTP that lets you uh, make some request to the server, and then based on that what kind of verb it is, it basically does some processing and then returns a response to you. So the post request, what is the use of post request, is to add new data into the database or system, right? And the change the role of put request is to update some existing data. So first you check whether the data is existing. If it's not existing, then you respond with a not found status code probably, and then otherwise you just basically update the data and return the updated data. Then you have delete. Delete is sort of very simple. So you basically know that okay, this is the resource sitting on my server or database that I want to delete, right? So that is what something you can do. Middleware is something that sits between request and response, as already talked about. So generally common middleware examples are of authentication and logging, right? So you can put a logger middleware which basically takes the request and logs it, and then response is something that you can skip in it and then call the next function of it. Then you have MongoDB. MongoDB is a database. So the database basically stores user data, user related data or application related data. So it has JSON like documents. So instead of tables like in the conventional SQL relational schemas, we have tables, and then tables are like this is the row and column that I'm storing. Now MongoDB is something which is a flexible structure, which is a JSON format, and it basically does not follow the uh, SQL structure. So it's sort of like which is that is what MongoDB is. Though the collection is users are there, to dos are there, posts are there, comments are there. Okay, and then example document is that you have a title to learn MERN, and then completed false. MongoDB query example is db.todos insert one, so you learn MERN, completed false. That is one uh, to do you have, right? And then you can have todos.find, completed false. So basically this means that every record with completed false value would be returned. Then you have mongoose. Mongoose is something that also adds validations and models and relationships. So mongoose basically creates a schema for you, and then you can say that okay, I am reporting a user schema. So user is following a user schema, and I can create a new user, and then I can save it or find through it. So next is in the front end we have React. Now React is a very deep topic, similarly in MongoDB, and MongoDB is still okay, but Node.js is also and Express are also very deep topics. But if you talk about React, then React basically helps you build UIs. So React has some concepts. One is that everything is a component, and it's basically running some JavaScript under the hood to make sure that it basically applies patches to the document object model, which is like saying that the representation that browser creates for the HTML and CSS, which is like the visual elements that you see on the document. So the key concepts are that your application are a bit dynamic, so they have some state, they have some hooks, and they have some document object model. So these are the components. So you can define that, okay, this is my entire application and it's rendering a heading 1 tag with hello world text in it. Then we can have state. Inside this functional component, you call this thing a functional component that returns this JSX. This is a functional component, this returns a JSX. So this thing is a count. This count, what it does is it basically stores this value within the scope of this component, and whenever you want to change that value, you can call this setter function to update that state variable in your program. Then it will re-render the UI with that updated state variable. Now the now how to connect the React frontend with the Node.js backend is through the use of fetch calls, API calls. So you call an API and you get that data out of it, or you can use XCOs to get the data, and this is how the whole stack works. So the full flow is that user basically does something on the website. React basically handles what to display on the UI. React sends the API request. Express middlewares receive the request, and then Node executes that logic and stores something into the data in the MongoDB, or fetches some data from the MongoDB. Response is sent back, and React updates the UI. This is how dynamic applications are built. Modern Web3 application, Web2 applications are built. So with this sort of tech stack knowledge, you can build anything like uh, chatbots, or you can build, I mean, you will have to put your own logic, but you can build a chatbot like ChatGPT if you know this well enough. And if you know, I mean, you can build it. It's not impossible. It's possible, but it will take a lot of time to build, for you to build a lot of knowledge, digging into a lot of concepts, and then you can build it. Or you can build chat applications with this sort of idea, or you can build a social media application with this sort of idea, or you can build a YouTube kind of application, or Netflix kind of application, or any sort of blogging platform kind of application, or any application. The imagination is just left to you. So yeah, you can build softwares through this architecture, at least web applications. Building software is a different thing, but web applications you can build. So the project is client, the you have a client and a server, and then you basically have to basically study these topics. So what are some applications that you can build? So you can try fiddling around and building your authentication system, right? Using login sign up forms. You can make your components for login sign up forms, and then you can connect that to cookies and set JWTs in the ongoing headers, and then you can set refresh tokens after every time the JWT expires. You can refresh that JWT token, right? You can build something like a real-time chat app in which you can use WebSockets, and then typing indicators and online users. You can build something like Notion is a very good application in which you basically manage documents with different sort of functionalities available. So you can build something like that. You can build an e-commerce platform with having cart and payment and admin panel, and you can build a dev portfolio CMS in which you can have your own portfolio editor. So most developer usually just know React and a bit of CRUD APIs. But if you want to grow further from that point, then you should know system design, you should know architecture, you should know scalability, you should know how these systems work, and a lot of other concepts that determine whether your web application loads fast or is it a slow application. So that's what it is. So this is a bit of uh, so the more you try to dive into it in individual topics, you will be able to grasp it more through time. It will take time, but you will be able to understand that how these topics work. But this is very crucial in today's job. These concepts, if you know well enough and you can do a bit of data structure algorithms and you have some sort of knowledge of programming, then you can uh, mainly react and if you know React a bit, then you are very much industry ready to take on any challenge, any UI challenge, any full stack application challenge. If you know MERN, then you can have any full stack application challenge and you can attempt it at least. How well you do it depends on you, but how much you know and how much you know how to apply. But this is something that is very crucial in today's time. And a lot of people in industry are currently getting paid really well to do all the to manage all of this stuff. So yeah, you can deep dive into it, but this is my second video going in this is my second video going into software engineering, and this is something that is very much relevant in today's time. So I wanted to share this. If you like, I hope you like this small session on uh, software engineering, real world software engineering, and I think you get something useful out of it. So thanks for listening.